All right. Hello, guys. This is Sara Kolata. Welcome to yet another Talk of Architecture Talk Tank. Today, I'm here with an expert, Simon Berry, from Fresh Projects. And we've gathered to talk a little bit about architecture fees and about pricing, especially now at the time of COVID. Hello, Simon. Thank you very much for joining me for the talk.
Hi, Sarah. Good to be here.
Thank you. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, so like Sarah said, my name is Simon Berry. We started a company called Fresh Projects, and this is born out of the frustration that we had with the industry in the sense that we don't value our time and what we do well enough. And as a result, the industry as a whole generally doesn't charge what it should be doing for its services. And that has a whole knock-on effect through the whole industry in the sense that we're not earning what we should be earning on projects. As a result, we're not paying what we should be paying to very talented staff. And those staff are either leaving the industry, and I've seen that firsthand, to go work at a fancy management consultancy job, or go work in a finance or something like that. Or we're not even attracting the right people into the industry from a graduate level in the first place. So what we're trying to do as Fresh Projects is trying to break that cycle and say, okay, we want to try and get fees right in the industry. We want to try and make sure that architects, engineers, and other built environment professionals are actually charging right, but making sure that whatever fee they are earning, they're actually staying within those costs. And that's very difficult for us to do because of our personalities. We'll come to that later. But yeah, we're just trying to provide the tools that ultimately make sure that our industry survives and thrives, and that we can all make money and attract talent and do fantastic work, because the reason we're here in the first place is we love designing, we love creating, and we just need the money to make sure that that happens.
Thank you. Wow, I really feel like there is a true need for the services that you're providing, and all the issues that you mentioned in the industry, they're really quite permanent, and it's easy to see that. I think that it's true. A lot of people are actually leaving the industry because of the the problem with payment. But how do Fresh Projects actually solve that problem, particularly with your service?
So, I mean, it's a difficult problem to solve, and I kind of alluded to it before, but one of the main problems we have, and particularly with architects, is that our personality types are just such that we don't like doing this. There's a system called Myers-Briggs, I don't know if you've heard of it, personality test. So anyone will answer a whole bunch of questions, and at the end of that, it spits out what your personality type is, and they've classified it into one of 16 different types, and architects actually fall into a category called INTP, I think it is, yeah. And what that means is that we love ideas, we love concepts, we love creating, we love solving problems, but we don't really like facts and details. We don't like going into the nitty gritty and worrying about money and things like that. So it's a fundamental characteristic of personalities of architects, is that we don't like dealing with this issue about fees and money and stuff like that, and managing your practice. So it's a difficult nut to crack in terms of where we sit as a service provider or a product provider, is to try and say, how do we enable architects to be able to do things that they don't like doing, which is working out the correct fee and working and tracking your costs on projects. So we've taken an approach where we try and it's born out of experience of, in my background, I was working as commercial director for WSP, which is a big engineering company, and the same personality traits apply to engineers largely. I was commercial director trying to crack the whip on all these engineers and say, please do a fee calculation, please do your project planning, please do your timesheets, all those sort of things. And it's just, it's like trying to get blood out of a stone. So generally the approach we take with Fresh Projects at a very high level, as a conceptual level, is to say, okay, let's get something in place, and that's not going to be 100% detailed. We're not going to plan down your project to every single hour and how long each drawing is going to take and how long each meeting is going to take and all that sort of stuff. But let's give you the tools to be able to very quickly, and when I say quickly, I'm saying 30 seconds, 1 minute, to work out what is the job going to cost you. And we admit that's not going to be 100% accurate because you can't do that in 30 seconds, but at least you've got something on a piece of paper that you can then start planning your project to. And I think that appeals particularly to architects, is to say, okay, let's spend a little bit of time, get something in place, make sure that we've got a reasonably good idea, call it at 80% confidence level of what the job is going to cost you to deliver. And then working off the basis of what the job's going to cost you to deliver, then what fee you should be charging the client. It sounds very simple. I think most people in the world think that they know that you should charge more than what you spend in order to be a profitable business. Having said that, it's amazing how few architects and engineers actually do that. And it comes back to our personality types. Passionate about designing, solving problems, making our clients happy. We'll often work through the nights, over weekends, ridiculous deadlines, put in so much effort to create amazing designs, because that's what we love doing, but that actually just blows the budget. It makes what we're doing unsustainable. So to answer your questions, so Fresh Projects is really just about providing a platform, easy to use, quick to use, that at the very basics, make sure you're doing, working out what is the job going to cost you, what is the fee you're going to charge a client, and then tracking that over time to say, okay, how much have I billed the client, how much have I spent on the jobs?
Interesting. Yeah, I think that it's great actually, because I remember from practicing as well, when you get really excited about the project and the client comes with the concept, you really want to do it. And a lot of times you forget about not only the time that you put into it, but also as you go into construction, how many things can go wrong. If you even get the materials on site a day later, you're actually paying so much overhead fees for a little mistake. And these mistakes happen over and over again in the construction site and throughout the process of design as well. Sometimes there's just some things you overlook, and then you just have to spend time to repair that mistake as well. That's going back to the desk and redrawing. And I think that it comes with experience, but as you go into practice, a lot of times you don't really foresee, the fact that the actual project takes longer usually, and there might be mistakes that you have to pay for. So I think it's really good to have like a base to be able to judge and estimate how much a project will be, and from there on to come up with the price. So this is just great. So tell me, how is it really?
Can I just jump in quickly in two important points on what you've just said? And we deal with hundreds of architectural practices, and even within just architects, there's a spectrum. So you do get some architects who are very detail orientated and they worry a lot about the detail. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you get people who just don't care. Visionaries, and they don't even know. Like, we had a customer, they kept paying us 2 or 3 times every month because they just didn't even know who they were paying and when, and it was just crazy. But one of the key things you pointed about there is changes and variations on a project. So timesheets, that's a dirty word. Architects didn't become architects to fill in timesheets, but the biggest cost in any practice is your professional resources. So whether you're a one-man band, a solo architect, or you're a 200 person practice, the bulk of your costs, at least 60%, up to 70, 80% is going to be salaries for people. And unless you know where your time is going, you can't get a grip to your project. And unfortunately, that means timesheets. There is no silver bullet to get around that. And if you do start doing timesheets, you get to get an idea of that. And one of the biggest value adds that we've seen from our customers when they start to do timesheets, or if they have been doing timesheets on different systems in the past, is that you can track the difference between what you ought to have done the first time around and when there are changes on a project. So when there's a variation. And even if you do nothing else, some people, some of those detail-oriented architects that we talk about, we've got a client that's going live at the moment. They want to track 76 different activities on each stage of a project, which is just ridiculous. I don't know what you do with all that detail. So even if you don't, not that detail orientated, if you're on the visionary side, if nothing else, you track the difference between the time spent on a project doing the original agreed scope versus the time you do on variations and changes. It's amazing how, if you've got that data in your pocket when you're talking to the client and you say, look, this is what we budgeted, this is what we've done, and this is how much we've actually done since then, because of either you've changed your mind and you moved the staircase, or you've changed the scope, or something happened on site, or whatever the reasons were. But you've got that ammunition to go sit with your client and say, look, this is where we are. This was our fee to do this much, but we've now done all this other work, and you probably won't get all that back all the time, but at least you've got real data, and it makes that conversation a lot easier with the client, as opposed to if you don't have a system in place where you're tracking this, and you go to your client and you say, we've done all these different things for you and changes, but you've got nothing to justify it, and your client will turn on, cry me a river, and that's an important factor. So if nothing else, just tracking the amount of time and cost you're spending on variations is a key tool to make yourself cover your costs as an architect. The second point, just to pull out what you're saying, is you talked about construction, and that's we see this in our data as well. We've got 30 plus thousand projects being tracked at any given time in our system, and architects, obviously, like we said, they love the design stage of a project and creating it, and then you've got the construction stage, and obviously there's also challenges in there which you have to solve on a daily basis. But what we do see, depending on the region that you're in, is that a lot of the fee income is earned in the design stage, because that's where you're creating the solution for your clients. And the original fee agreed with the client often doesn't have that much meat of it in the construction stage. But we see in our data that actually the effort is going into construction. Because of the way the world is changing and the way things happen on site, and you always have these changes and variations, and things drag on, and delays, and et cetera, and that just sucks up all. You might have made some profit in the design stages, and you might be thinking your projects are making money, but the construction stage actually sucks all that profit back out again. So if you look at the project as a whole, you end up losing money. And this is particularly pertinent right now in what we're going through and what's forecast in terms of recessions and depressions, is that the way architectural practices survive in the past is that you always have, like I said, you've got your upfront design, which is making money, and then your construction, which is losing money. And then you get your next project, which comes in, and you're designing that, and you're making money, and then you're losing money. But the overlap's always good, because while you're losing money on one construction project, you've got the next project that you're designing. And even if you're like I say, a one-man band, that's probably happening on a case-by-case basis. If you're a huge architectural practice, you've got hundreds of projects, but they're all kind of lining up so that the design stage of the next project is actually paying for your construction cost of the previous project. Now, when we get hit with a shock like we're about to get hit with the recession that's coming, is a lot of construction projects are going to be delayed, and particularly the construction phase might get pushed out, and that's going to hit architectural practices hard, because while we have been surviving in the past through funding ourselves from the next project onto the current project, you're going to get this shock where it spreads out that kind of overlap of waves. And it's going to create an even harsher issue where we've got all these other projects that we need to finish off, but we haven't got those new projects coming in, which are helping us stay profitable. And it's something we obviously have to be aware of and make sure that we're keeping track of and trying to get on top of, just to survive.
Oh, interesting. I mean, honestly, it's I've never really looked at it that way, but you're so right. And we're talking now, it's about a month into COVID-19. Everybody's staying at home, and I've been talking to quite a few architects that either run small firms or bigger, larger firms. And I think one of the biggest issues that they have, and we touched on it a little bit as well, is having to cover fees of cost of staff and maintain your workers, because when we go back to normal, you're going to need that work label. But in the same time, right now it's difficult, and people are facing that decision what to do. And that is one of the big problems, to maintain a practice with the money that is saved, put aside somewhere throughout a period of pause, because you're going to need those people later. But also, we don't know how long all of it is going to last for. So let's just say some companies might have just enough money to go on like this for the next 3 months. What do you think from your experience? Laying off staff, cutting salaries, I think has been a big debate. A lot of people are wondering what's the right thing to do. And I think that most of the practices really live kind of month to month. So even if there is any savings, probably just to maintain maybe 3 months of a pause like that. So what would you suggest?
Sure, that's $1 million question, literally. It's tough, and it's going to be tough, and I don't think there is a simple answer to that. I think at the moment we probably, because this is such a big shock and everyone's there's this sense of community, and there's a lot of appeals to say, okay, please pay your providers, even if you're not getting the value. And I think in month one, which we still are in now, there's still a sense of that people are getting paid for what they should have got paid, and we're kind of surviving. So it's going to depend for how long this goes on for. I think if it's short, and there's signs already that people are starting to prioritize, if you want to call it that, the economy and the long-term issues over the short-term COVID threats. And I don't want to go into whether that's right or wrong. There's a lot of debate around that. But certainly there's indications that the lockdowns are going to be released in the next few months. So it may be that this is maybe a 3-month sort of shutdown that we're looking at, and then things will start to pick up after that. But even always, and I think it'll take a while, even if the lockdown does get withdrawn throughout the world, for us to get back to where we were before that. So it's going to be a 3 to 6 month shock for everyone. What I would say in terms of staff specifically is that laying them off, if you can't pay them, you can't pay them. I've read a lot about just being honest and saying, okay, this is where we are, this is what we want to do, what can we do together? Are you willing to work for free? Are you willing to work for 20% or 30% of your salary? Can we be together? I would observe that anecdotally, the industry as a whole is generally a very, as a pyramid, it's a very bottom heavy pyramid, in the sense that 85% of practices in the UK, for example, have less than 20 staff. So there's a lot of tiny practices in architecture, as we know. And that's, in a way, also enables or encourages, and as an industry, the way we work is to create new practices all the time. So the COVID aside, the traditional sort of career for a lot of architects is, get some experience in a practice and then go start your own practice. And that's borne out by the shape of the industry, in the sense that there are lots of these little things. So in the context of that, what I would say is important is to understand that if you're going to be too harsh in the sense of either laying off people, furloughing them, or having to let them go, that may well be the trigger when this is over in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months, for those key staff to say, okay, this is the right time for me to start my own practice. So that just adds another sort of burden of pressure onto people who are running their own practices to try and make things work with the money in these difficult times.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, indeed it was a really hard question. I think that you touched upon some really important points. And I think it's not really an easy one, but it's only about managing the situation and trying not to um, level to the ground zero too much over this next few months, so that when we do go back, it's easier to pick up instead of having to then do recruitment and before you go back to projects, etc. It's not always a one-day job. It'll take a while for people to rebuild their practices before they actually start facing projects again. And it might as well be that projects will like pose quite a big demand as well. So it's very much
Yeah,
about
there's
mitigating
three.
risks.
Sorry. I think what we'll hopefully see, and it's often the case, is when there is a recession, governments spend on infrastructure. That's one of the big levers they can pull in terms to get economies going again. So in a way, out of all the industries, we could say count ourselves lucky, because I think when this is over and when they start to try and re-stimulate the economy, a lot of money is going to go into construction and infrastructure, and we should be well placed to hopefully gain from that.
That's excellent. It's definitely a positive in there. So one more big question. I know that in times of crisis, people very often lower their fees in order to either face the projects that they're already involved with, or perhaps new projects. And it has a detrimental effect on the whole industry. It's kind of a bit of a panic mode or a panic action, but it's definitely on the bigger scale, quite like it has effects on the whole industry, so it's an economy, and it takes a while for it to pick up. Can you elaborate a little bit on this and share your viewpoint?
Yeah, asking lots of easy questions today. Yeah, it's true, and I think we're going to see that in times of crisis, like you say, people do. The mentality becomes not, can I make money? It's, can I survive? And I just need to get money in to pay salaries. I don't care if I'm losing money on this project, but I need to get X amount of money next month. Uh, Otherwise, I'm going under. And in normal times, we spend a lot of time speaking with our clients and advice to say, don't ever do that. So there may be one or two projects that I'm talking about in normal times now, where you strategically take a decision, this is going to be a loss leader because I want to get in with this client, or it's a fantastic job for my portfolio, whatever the case may be. But largely speaking, chasing revenue, so just about getting fees in the door, it doesn't care whether I'm making money or not, just to pay salaries, is a bad strategy to have. You want to be looking at profit at the end of the day. Am I spending less than I'm earning? And what I would say is important now is to understand, okay, let's do work, and we're going to have to do work that just covers our costs. But that little sentence in itself is a very important one, is to cover our costs. And we do this exercise all over the time, over the place, workshops with architects, where we look into costing of time. And we will, for example, say to the room, the last one I did 150 architects in the room, and we said, okay, here's a simple income statement. This is how much fees you earn, this is your costs and salaries, and this was your overheads, literally 5 or 6 lines. And here's some timesheet data, and we give the same information, put it up on the screen for the whole room, and you say, okay, how much does 1 hour of your time cost? And it's amazing. The architects, first of all, scratch their heads for ages, and we actually work in teams, so you can talk to each other, you can Google, you can do whatever you want, and then you give the answers back. And it's amazing the response we get from that. So everyone's looking at the same data, and we get a huge variety of response from, for example, say the correct answer is £50 an hour. The answers range from £10 an hour to £100 an hour. And that in itself is bad, because given the same data, how can 150 architects come up with 150 different answers? It means we don't know to work this out. And probably more worrying is out of the 150 architects, over 60% of them in the last case, for example, were less than half of what it should be. So they were less than £25 an hour. So what that's saying is that we don't know how to value our time and our fees and what they should be, and B, we undervaluing it by more than half. So we think we should be charging £25 an hour, and we should actually be charging £50 an hour. So when it comes to your question, which is like, what do we charge at the moment? Do we just cut our fees? I would say yes, we're going to have to do that. But you need to understand what your costs are on a project. And that goes back to what I've been talking about now, which is understanding what is your time cost. And, it's not something that gets taught in architectural school ever. But you need to be able to understand, if I'm going to do this job for a client, it's going to cost me X. And more often than not, my point being is that most architects think it's going to cost them this much, but it's actually going to cost them double that at least to deliver that job. And if you do continue to do job after job like that, you're going to go under. So it's important to understand what your red line is in terms of what is the cost to deliver that job. At the moment, and it may be that you have to reduce those costs, like we talked about earlier, either by reducing overheads in your practice or by asking staff to work. I know it's happening a lot around the world. Work for 80% of what they're getting charged, normally get paid, or 60% or 50%, whatever it is, just to survive. But whatever those input costs are, you still need to understand what is the job going to cost you to deliver. And then that's, even if you're not aiming to make a profit, you've got to try and cover your costs in that. And there's a small punt for fresh projects. And we actually have a free version of fresh projects, which you don't have to pay to use this, is you can work out those costs if you don't know how to do that, as most architects don't and never got taught to do. There are tools out there that allow you to put in what is the salary cost, what are your company costs, and it'll actually work out for you what is an hour of your time cost. And if you then do a budget on your job, you can then work out what is that project going to cost you, and then you at least know what your bottom line in terms of what the fee is that you can charge, and then work from there.
Last question. So it sounds to me like it's basically negotiation time. Do you have any tips for negotiating either with clients or staff?
So two different things. With staff, I'd say be honest. Again, our personality types in our industry, whether an engineer or architect, we often, money isn't a driver for a lot of architects, engineers, and that's borne out by, I'm sure if you look around at your peers and colleagues, and we're actually more motivated by the chance to solve problems for our clients. So I think if you can be honest with your staff and say, okay, look, we're going through tough times. Everyone knows this. I mean, it's the number one issue right now. And that can pull you together as a team and say, okay, look, we're in this together. Let's get through it. We may have to cut costs. We may have to cut salaries. We may have to delay bonuses, whatever the case may be. I would say be honest with your staff and try and and that might actually make you stronger as a team and get more productive work out of you and longer term engagement and loyalty and all that sort of stuff. Discussions with clients is probably a different strategy I'd take, is that looking again at personality types is more often than not, it depends where you are on the architectural spectrum. So if you're on residential side or home building, you're always going to deal with a wide variety of homeowners, and it might change from person to person. But on the more commercial side, if you're an architect doing development work for a developer, those types of personalities are hard personalities. They will drive a hard bargain, and it's borne out again and again. The professional team on construction projects often, particularly architects and engineers who, like I say, are motivated by designing and solving problems, not by money, they will get, out negotiated 10 times out of 10 by sort of finance focused, either clients or developers or quantity surveyors, whoever's deciding the fee. So what I would say there is it's very important if you're talking to those types of personalities to again understand what your baseline is. Because if you know that you can't go lower than X in terms of your fee, at least you've got a bit of foundation to argue against with your client. If you've got no idea, then they're just going to push you and push you and push you and push you until such point that you walk away with a loss-making fee on a job. So yeah, so my advice generally would be, to summarize, is with your staff, be honest, open, understand what motivates them, and sell the vision that we're solving problems, and you're going to still have that challenge and be motivated in your job. And it's difficult times, and I think we'll appeal to that type of personality. And if you're talking to difficult clients, make sure you understand what your baseline is in terms of costs and fees, and try and be as hard as you can with them, because everyone's going to be hard. Everyone's looking after themselves right now. It's a fun fight, and just understand where you sit.
Thank you so much, Simon. This was so insightful. I think you shared quite a lot of, we covered a lot of subjects that I know I've seen people debating and talking, and I think I'm going to try to share this conversation in some of the groups that I've read the conversations. Hopefully people will find answers, or it will help them make decisions. If anybody is interested to find out more about Fresh Projects or reach out to you, what do they do?
So I'd say, as always, probably the starting point is our website. So it's www.freshprojects.cloud, or which is the international site, or freshprojects.co.uk, which is our UK site. And you can learn a bit more about the product there, and there's all sorts of contact us details. Also on a personal level, if you do want to get in touch with me, LinkedIn is probably the best platform. And I'm more than happy to help anyone with advice or anything I can do to help them. My personal passion is, like I said, is to try and get the industry aware of costs and money and things like that, which we're not very good at, so that we can grow as an industry and like I say, attract talent, retain talent, and be a lucrative industry that people aspire to join. So yeah, I'm more than happy to help on that side.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and sharing your wisdom. And yeah, let's see what happens next with post-COVID.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But I think, yeah, we're resilient. I think maybe in a weird sense, the built environment, we're used to cycles. We used to boom and bust. So in a way, we probably more equipped than others. We also, like I said, when things do recover, we're probably going to be one of the first industries to get an injection. So let's hope that things will look good in 6 months' time.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Okay, keep well.